What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here today for the weekly sports card market update, covering a little bit of news, a little bit of charts and graphs, any stories that we may have missed throughout the week. Nothing too crazy this week, honestly, on the sports card side of things. Well, I know I've done videos on it. I know it's not for everybody. Even if you're not in the Magic Gathering, the Magic 30th stuff is just fascinating from any standpoint, really. Just if you're remotely in the collectible space, whether it's sports cards, non-sports cards, comic books, and then if you are in the TCG space, if you're not familiar with what's happening over there, I would recommend, go back and watch the stuff that I've done, or, go check out Alpha Investment stuff or whatever. Even if you don't care, it has just been a fascinating nightmare of nonsense. Just crazy stuff going on with Magic 30th and Wizards and Hasbro and that whole thing. That could be like a Netflix documentary at one point in time. So on the sports card side of things, nothing too crazy this week. A lot of releases announced. I know, and I may actually do a video on it. I have it up on screen here. Wallet fatigue has hit me hard this weekend. Coming off Black Friday sales and Cyber Monday sales and spending a boatload of money on stuff. And then Topps, just, Topps, give me a break, man. Update Chrome coming out, update Chrome hobby boxes, update Chrome on Target, Chrome Sapphire, Bowman just came out, like, yikes. Like I said, maybe we'll do a separate video on wallet fatigue this week, but I know mine is spent. I need like a minute. I need to take a breath. Plus it's December, it's Christmas time. You guys need to chill out. We'll talk about Sapphire here a little bit more in a minute. The other stuff this week, mostly grading company stuff. PSA with the partnership with Whatnot, they rolled out the $15 TCG fee. We kind of covered that in yesterday's gem rate video. If you didn't get a chance to catch that one, Saturday release. I don't typically do those too often, but wanted to get to the gem rate data. There was a lot of good tidbits of stuff in there with downward price pressure from PSA, and you could kind of really start to see in the numbers on how these various companies tweak things and how demand kind of shifts around a little bit. You kind of start to put the puzzle pieces together on where price points kind of matter and kind of dictate things. To me, the biggest thing in the grading company space will be when do they get to their bottoms, and then what happens, and what's the next battleground once we get beyond price? Is it turnaround time? Is it customer service? Is it some other sort of value add? That's the missing link. I don't know what it is. I don't have the answers for that one. I don't know what that thing will be. So, kind of talk about it here for a minute. Topps updates went up live on Target. And then the other thing that came out was this Topps Chrome Sapphire. This has kind of been the spicy meatball of the week on the release side of things. This got put up for $250 a box. No guaranteed auto, a 660 card checklist, which is not unheard of for Sapphire. A huge checklist for Sapphire is not necessarily out of the norm. And it's just Topps Chrome Sapphire. I may have called it update by mistake. Sorry if I did. Topps Chrome Sapphire. $250 a box, 2 parallels per box. Full disclosure, I bought one of these. I may have bought more than one. I was not thrilled with the layout of the product overall, but it more had to do with chasing regular Topps Chrome updates, not Topps Chrome Sapphire. I'd already spent quite a bit of money that day on Chrome updates, and then this came out later in the day, and I was like, I'm tapped, boys. But I did pick up one. Here's the thing with Sapphire. It is typically a pretty high demand product. Even without the autos in there, I think this ends up doing pretty well. People love Sapphire. They are gorgeous cards. And this checklist is loaded. And that's really what it comes down to. The checklist is absolutely loaded. When you have J-Rod and you have Franco and you have Witt and Pena and Torkelson and just a bunch of other guys, it's a very, very deep class. You guys and girls have not seen the videos on it yet. I got some update hangers finally in the mail on a Black Friday deal. I've recorded a couple of videos of me opening those. Those will be up at some point in time throughout the month of December. I recorded multiples. And there's just so many rookies in Tops this year because of the 2022 class. And these cards look fantastic. You know, this Wit, it's not a batting pose, but the royal blue, the Royals hat with the blue sapphire background, like this J-Rod, I assume that's a gold or a yellow. I don't really know. That looks stunning. I mean, I'm a sucker for sapphire. I am. So, you know, maybe this is just hitting me in the perfect spot, but $250 a box is not cheap, and the no guaranteed auto is a little scary as well, because it's kind of then, well, how many of these things did you print? That's the other thing with update Chrome boxes that are coming out, not guaranteed auto, but this is the first ever hobby box format for that product. So Topps is really churning it out, taking advantage of the 2022 class, but regular Topps update paper, people are still going crazy for. You know, I see boxes moving at shows. The retail moves really well. The singles sell okay, considering it's a low-end product, but you're not expecting like huge cards out of there, though there are some pretty big cards in there too. And I can tell you after ripping my hangers, you know, not getting into any specifics to spoil stuff, but it feels good opening that product, even if you lose a little bit, because it just feels like you did okay. Just because there's so many different players in the product to hunt for, that you're almost always getting something, even if it's like a $3 card out of a $15 box, $15 hanger pack, or a $12, whatever they go for, a hanger box. If you get a $2 or $3 cards out of there, that actually feels pretty okay. So, but I talk about that more in those box openings once we get to it. Maybe I'll put one up this week, but that's really the biggest thing in the newsy front is this Topps just unloading product left and right this month. And that update stuff comes out in a couple weeks. I ordered some of the megas. We'll probably do a box opening of the megas just to open one up and kind of see what it looks like for the update Chrome. And I ordered a couple hobby boxes. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll end up opening a hobby box. I may just end up sitting on them, but I'm willing to bet on the 2022 class. J-Rod already looks like a legit superstar player, and then we'll see if anyone else emerges from it as well. So we'll get back into baseball here in a minute. Actually, let's just hop to baseball first. Let's hop in the charts and graphs. Since we're talking about baseball, let's just go ahead and hop straight to baseball. If you want to check out Market Movers, link in the description down below. $1 for your first month. Bunch of different plans depending on what you want. But if you want your own charts and graphs to look this stuff up yourself or look at something that I don't, feel free to check it out. Baseball. Let's start off with Acuna. I was just kind of curious on two guys specifically. We're going to look at Acuna. We're going to look at Vlad. Where their prices are at, have they kind of hit the bottom? Traditionally, and once again, who the hell knows anymore? I don't have the magic 8 ball or the crystal ball. Traditionally, this is usually a pretty good time to buy baseball singles. You really should not be selling baseball right now unless you have to, or unless you think the market itself is just going to continue to tank throughout January, February, March leading up to next season. What I was curious about is if it seems like prices have kind of leveled out for some guys. And Acuna and Vlad are the two we're going to look at this week, are two guys that you really don't hear anything about right now at all. At all. So up here we have Acuna's Topps Chrome Rookie Auto, PSA 10. His 2018 Topps Chrome Refractor version of the same card in a PSA 10. And then his Bowman Chrome First Bowman 2017 in a BGS 9.5. I went with the BGS 9.5 because it had the most sales data by a mile. Because back in 2017, most of that stuff went to BGS. PSA 10s and PSA 9s just aren't as prevalent because of the way grading worked in 2017 compared to 2022. So that's why we're looking at a BGS 9.5 there. So over the last 180 days, which takes us back into the middle of summer, back into June, so we kind of see the decline throughout the end of the season and then the flattening. You know, you can see the red here. The rookie auto down 20%, the refractor auto down 40%, first Bowman down 50%. Base auto's at 700, the refractor's at 900, and the BGS 9.5 first Bowman's at 1100. Now, for most of this stuff, you're probably gonna have to wait for auctions. Most buy it nows aren't listed for these prices, but if you wait for auctions or maybe cash at a show, you could get these prices. But you notice the red, huge drops over the last 180 days. Let's change this to 90 days. 90 days takes us back to early September, so the very tail end of the season. Since the end of the season, essentially, rookie auto, flat, 3% change. Refractor, down 13%. First Bowman, up 7%. That's over the last 90. When you look at the last 60, some of these don't have only one sale, but over the last 60, the rookie auto up 13%. The first Bowman up 10%. And then the refractor auto has only one is sold. So if you're interested in Acuna, this might not be a bad time to hop on board to train with whatever particular card that you want if you like the player. To me, obviously macroeconomics aside, it looks like Acuna anyway is probably sitting at the bottom of his prices to maybe even slightly going back up again. Now, will he go up more to March, or does this stay flat and then just dip again? I have no freaking idea. If I knew that, I'd buy them all up and then sell them if I knew what the prices were going to go to, but I'm just guessing at best. But I do think at least temporarily he is at the bottom. It's always tricky calling a bottom, but at least the trend lines show he's been trending flat for the last 60, 90 days. Vlad, very similar thing. We go back 180 days, takes us back into the summer. Vlad, we are looking at a little slightly different versions of cards. X-Fractor, PSA 10. I do own one of those. Sapphire, PSA 10, base. First auto, BGS 9.5. And a refractor auto, PSA 10. Once again, if you're going back to summer, huge decreases. 60% drop, 50% drop, 50% drop, 52% drop. That's at 180 days. At 90 days, this takes us into the beginning of September, so still a month of the season to go. We still see a lot of red. 25, 40, 10, 42 across the board. When we go back 60 days and remove ourselves from the season, 60 days takes us back to early October, we are seeing much more flattening prices. The X-Fractor has a pretty big dip, but I think that had maybe just a weird sale to kind of start the chart off. If I literally cut the chart off one day later, it would basically it'd still be down, but not as much. But a 40% drop on the X-Fractor. But the more important cards, if you will, base Sapphire, only down 3%. First Bowman, BGS 9.5, down 5%. Refractor, first auto, first Bowman, down 6.5%. If we go back 30 days, 18% decrease for the X-Fractor, 5% green for the Sapphire, and then slight downs for the first Bowman autos. Limited sales data as we kind of keep condensing this. Once again, not a lot of baseball sales are going on right now. So Vlad, another intriguing player. I really like Vlad. I think he's a fantastic player. I loved his dad. But he's one that kind of just no one's talking about right now. And he actually had a pretty decent season last year. It wasn't as good as his previous year, but he still had a pretty good year. So that's it for baseball. Just a kind of an interesting time for baseball. I kind of want to pick like just one or two random players. We looked at Tatis, I think last week or the week before, and just kind of glance at them and kind of see what their off-season prices are doing. One quick card on football, and then we'll jump over to the NBA. Mike White fever is upon us. As Zach Wilson falls off the grid, Mike White is our new hero. This is his optic hollow. I just looked at raw because there's really nothing of his graded or very few. Raw, this card was going for $4. As of today, it is going for $20. And you can see all that price action happened over the last weekend. It got all the way up to almost $30. Obviously, condition will vary. Basically, about a $20 card right now. If you have some Mike White stuff laying around, once again, this is the optic hollow in the raw format, but pretty consistently was going for $4 or $5 for quite a bit. All of a sudden, he looks pretty good. To the moon. To the moon. NBA. Kind of a mix of players that we don't typically talk about or get talked about a ton, though Tyrese Halliburton has been getting a lot of talk in the media. I mentioned him on a video earlier this week. Guy's playing great. He looks fantastic. If you redrafted 2020 today, and there's kind of a difference between, I kind of talked about this, real life NBA and card NBA are kind of two different things. From a real life NBA perspective, Tyrese Halliburton might be the number one pick in the 2020 draft if it got redrafted today. Might. Worst case, he's probably 2. I don't think he would slip to 3. Be interesting. Anthony Edwards, he looks like he has a chance to be great. He needs to put it together mentally. LaMelo, I'm not a believer. I would still probably take him third in that draft, to be fair. But we need to see it. He hasn't done anything this year. He's been hurt. I wasn't a big fan of what he did last year, though he did surprise me with the shooting a little bit. I still don't know. My problem with LaMelo is his card prices don't line up with his on-court talent. I just don't think he's the best player on a championship team, and he's priced like he's the best player on a championship team. I just don't know that he's that guy. Tyrese Halliburton, I think, could be, how do I want to word this? The best. It's kind of almost like Garland and Mitchell. Garland is a key cog to the Cavs. He may actually be, from like a real life NBA perspective and to how the team operates perspective, he might be more important to the Cavs than Mitchell is, but Mitchell's the superstar, if that makes sense. You'd almost say the same thing with Evan Mobley. That's kind of how I view Halliburton. He would probably be the most important player on a championship team, but not necessarily the superstar player, if that makes sense. But Halliburton's been playing fantastic. His prices are just now starting to creep up a little bit. This is over the last 60 days, which basically takes us right back before the season started. Optic Hollow PSA 10 up 11%. Silver Prism up 20%. That's currently going for a little under $500. The Optic Hollow is going for around $160. Personally, I mean, anyone that's watched the channel for a while knows I'm a pretty big fan of Optic Hollows. That seems like a pretty wide spread between Optic Hollow and Prism Silver. I will say the Prism Silver pop is pretty low. It's only 96. And I did look at PSA 9s. PSA 9 pop was a little around 300. So it could be one of those things where it skews heavily towards the PSA 10 because of the population report. It could be more limited on the 10 on that. I would need to look at all of 2020 Prism to see if there's an imbalance there where PSA 9s are just way more prevalent than 10s due to printing issues. That's how LaMelo Ball's cards are. I do know that. Maybe Halliburton's the same way. I don't think Edwards is like that, though. Moving along. Devin Booker, also playing out of his mind. He had a monster game. I think it was earlier this week. Just an absolutely monster game. Devin Booker going back to early October. Base Prism down 26%. That one's taking a little bit of a hit. Silver Prism, PSA 9, flat. 1% change. Orange Wave, nice little color match. You know I'm a sucker for the color match. Just kind of threw this one in because it's a color match. Down 10%. Silver Prism, PSA 10. Only one sale at $820. The previous one to that was late summer, was much, much higher. But one is not sold in almost 2 months, month and a half on his Silver Prism. So I don't have an accurate number for what a PSA 10 might go for. But Booker stuff, a very low population count, and he is playing really, really well, as are the Phoenix Suns, but no price movement on his stuff, at least quite yet. KD's really kicked it up the last couple weeks. The Nets look like they're playing pretty well again. Obviously, they have a whole lot of other nonsense going on with that team, but I have not looked at KD prices for a while. This is going back 60 days on his stuff. Refractor, PSA 10. At $7,600, a 5% drop. His base Topps Chrome down 30%, and his PSA 9 down 30%. Now, this is one, if I change this from 60 to 30, where he's been playing a lot better lately, he may have hit his bottom. Refractor stayed flat. PSA 10, 0.1% into the green, but not a drop. And then the PSA 9 up 8% over the last 30 days. Once again, big swing if you look last 60. Pretty big drops there. The last 30, basically flat. So he may have been, his good play at worst case has held his prices. You know, maybe they've hit their current lows. But his PSA 10 Topps Chrome going for $1,000. That used to be, I don't even know, like a $2,000 or $3,000 card or something crazy at one point in time. Next up, just wanted to check in very quickly on SGA. His card prices continue to trend up. I went back 60 days on this one. We looked at him recently. His stuff's extremely hot. Base Prism up 55%. Silver Prism up 36%. That's in a PSA 10. And a PSA 9 up 98%. $500 for a PSA 10. Pop $529 on that one. Interesting to see his PSA 10 at $500 compared to Halliburton's at $486. But big population count difference. Only pop 96 on Halliburton and pop $529 on SGA's, even though SGA is playing much better. And that's saying something. SGA is playing out of his mind this year. One of the most impressive players of the season so far, other than Bull, the man, the myth, the legend. His PSA 10 has stabilized. Silver Prism. Actually watched him play the Cavs on, I think that was Friday night. By the way, Paolo Banchero looks good. I know he was hurt for a little while. He looks legit. Bull, just playing great. He's like Victor Wembanyama mini-me. He's what Victor Wembanyama hopes to be. But his PSA 10 has flattened out. Obviously, we talked about this card in the past. It was super cheap over the summer. 30, 35 bucks, even less. It has spiked up to 100, and it is held at 100. You know, if I look at the last, even the last 30 days, I think. Yeah, basically last 30 days, it's up 20% from 80 to 95. And you can see it's, you know, ever so slightly trending down, but it's basically right in that $90 to $100 range for the last month solid. And he continues to play great, and they keep feeding him more minutes because he's playing great, and that team has nothing to lose. So that's all I have for you guys and girls today. A little charts and graphs heavy this week after we've had some heavy news week one. So just quickly touching on each of the three major sports. I've gotten questions before. Hey, what about soccer stuff? World Cup's going on. I don't know anything about it. I don't know a thing about it. Couldn't even tell you a single thing about soccer. 0-0. That's a thing, right? I don't know. Knockout rounds. I think I heard that on a podcast before. So that's why I don't talk about soccer. But we will catch you guys and girls on the next one. Peace.